All right, guys, for today, I'm going to show you, actually teach you how to do the synthetic division. I know I did it real fast yesterday just so you can kind of see what it looked like. It's my favorite way to divide. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on everything, but a lot of what we do, it works for. Okay, so the biggest thing that limits us is we can only use this if the divisor, what we're dividing by, if we're dividing by something that's in this form, meaning it's like x, it could be a plus or a minus, it doesn't matter, and then some number. So that has to be the form. So if I kind of flip back through real quick to some of the ones that we did yesterday, is that in that form? Is it just x and then a number? That's x to the fifth. So no. Oh, wait, I lied. That's what I'm dividing by. I looked at that backwards. So if that was what I was dividing by, no. This is what I'm dividing by. Yes, it's just x and a number. This one? Nope, because it's got an x squared. This one? Yep, I could have done synthetic there. Here? No, I got all kinds of stuff going on there. That one? Yes. Okay. So if it's just x and then a number, you can use synthetic. Be happy because it's a lot faster. Promise. All right, so here's your kind of step-by-step how to do this process. And then I'm just going to kind of take you right through it. So first thing, you write the coefficients. What's the coefficient? The number next to your variable, right? So just the number in front, including zeros. That is the only thing that will trip you up when it comes to this. So like when I say including the zeros, if I had like 3x cubed plus 4x minus 3, what's missing? The x squared's missing. So if I was going to write the coefficients from this, I'd have to have a 3 for this one. I'd have to remember a 0 for the x squared, then the 4, and then the minus 3. Those would be the coefficients. So you're kind of looking as it stair steps down. If it starts in the fifth, you better have something in the fourth, the third, the squared, x to the first, and then constant. So you need everything stair step down. Andrew, you okay? I'm just writing my coefficients, and so x cubed, there's the coefficient for that one. There is no x squared, so I have to put the 0 for the x squared. You need that placeholder. Then I have the coefficient for the x to the first, and then the constant number, it comes down as well. So that's the only thing that's going to trip you up, is remembering those zeros. All right, you will omit all variables and all exponents. Notice all I wrote down were the numbers. Looks beautiful already, right? Lazy man's way to do this. For the divisor, you use the opposite sign of a. Or in other words, you use what does x equal. Okay? We're just going to jump in, because that's the easiest way to teach it to you. All right? Jump right in. So on this problem, are we missing anything? Will I have any zeros when I write my coefficients? No, I want x cubed, x squared, x to the first, constant. That's the first thing. Before you write anything, kind of just look at it and be like, is anything missing? Nothing's missing, so I'm going to write my coefficients. So I have a 1. Don't forget there was a 1 there. Then a 5, a -7, and a 2. So whatever sign's in front of it stays with it as well. Leave a little space in between, but you don't need a ton. And then instead of my radicand from yesterday, now it's almost like it's flipped upside down. It goes the other way. Notice I left a space underneath. Leave a space underneath. And then what am I dividing by? It's x minus 2. 2. Because again, if I asked you, what does x equal if I would solve that? You would tell me x equals 2. Okay, so you're always using what x equals. That's what you divide by. So before, remember, every time I had to change signs, change signs, change signs. Look, I changed the sign. I'm done. I don't have to change signs anymore. All right, you ready? This is fun. I like this process. Every single time, you will take that first number, draw an arrow, because people mess up if they don't draw the arrow in there. It drops straight down to right there. I put the arrow there as my own little placeholder, so I don't forget. I don't actually put anything underneath there. Now, when I think about multiplying and adding, what symbol did you first learn meant multiply? An X, an angle, right? They are angled pieces. What about adding? A plus, straight up and down, right? The plus sign. So anytime I'm looking at my number straight up and down, I'm adding, like a plus sign, straight up and down. If I'm looking at an angle, I am multiplying, like the X for multiply. So what is 2 times 1? That goes underneath that next number. That's why I put the arrow there, just to kind of placehold so I don't accidentally stick it underneath there. Straight up and down, what am I going to do? You're going to add 5 plus 2 is 7. Now I'm going to multiply. 2 times 7. That goes in the next one. And then you're going to add what's negative 7 plus 14. And you're going to multiply. 2 times 7 is 14. And then you're going to add. And I get 16. We're almost done already. Okay? Now, I am dividing out an x minus 2. So I'm taking one x out, right? I'm dividing one of them away. So since this started x cubed, and I take one away, I'm left with x squared. So I need to put my x's back in. So this, it always drops by 1 because I'm always dividing out just one x. So I'm going to have x squared, and you're going to stair step them back in. So after x squared would be x to the first. That 7 is my constant. So what's that mean about that 16? That's my remainder over x minus 2. Totally cool though, right? Now, you don't have to write this next part down. I'm going to do the same problem. You can just watch me if you want. I'm going to do it in long division. I just want you to see the difference. Okay? So if I did it with long division, I just want you to like kind of watch me do this and look at your numbers. See if you can kind of see where they're coming from. Okay? So what do you multiply x to get x cubed? X squared. So you would distribute and get x cubed minus 2x squared. Then you would have to change your signs. There's my 7x squared. Bring down minus 7x plus 2. What do you multiply x to get 7x squared? Distribute 7x squared minus 14x. Change your signs. Are you seeing the numbers? That gives me 7x plus 2. What do you multiply x to get 7x? Distribute 7x minus 14. Change your signs. And I get 16 for a remainder. Isn't that great? It's cool though. You're like, wow. Why didn't I teach it to you first? What's its limitation? If I'm dividing by x and plus or minus a number. If it's x squared, doesn't work. If it's like 2x plus a number, doesn't work. It's got to be x number. Now we use it a lot. I mean a lot. But there are circumstances where you have to use the long division. But is that not cool? Now, when you're doing this, I like a couple fail-safes, right? Ways that you can kind of look back and be like, something happened. Now, obviously, you can check every answer with long division, but who wants to do that, right? I don't want to do that. So one other fail-safe is people forget the zeros a lot. Dustin, you awake back there, hon? All right, so when you're putting your x's back in, they should always stair step down where you have a constant and remainder. Is it possible your remainder is 0? Yeah, if it's a factor, your remainder is going to be 0. But if I go through this process and you're like constant and then you don't have anything there, not even a 0, something's wrong. You forgot a 0 somewhere in this problem. Okay, so they stair step down, constant, remainder. You should have placeholders. Something should be there for a constant and a remainder. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Are there any missing zeros that I need to put in? It goes x cubed, x squared, x to the first, constant. So there's no missing zeros. So we write our coefficients. So 1, negative 14, 51, negative 54. What am I dividing by? Negative 2. Because if I asked you, you would tell me x equals negative 2 if I asked you to solve that. Okay, what do I do with the first number? Drop it down. Will it always be a 1? No, just happens to be in these last two problems it's been a 1. All right, at an angle, what do? You multiply. Negative 2 times 1 And then straight up and down, we're going to add. And that gives me negative 16. Multiply negative 2 times negative 16, 32. And then we add 83. This one's getting ugly fast. Then we multiply negative 166, and then we add negative 220. Is that a factor? No. It's a really ugly remainder. All right. Am I done? I'm really close, though, right? Yeah, I'm really close. This was x cubed, which means this one's going to be x squared, minus 16x plus 83. Again, I should have something for a constant, plus my remainder over x plus 2. Need you to make sure you're watching for that. And when we get to one where something's missing, I will do it both ways so you can see how it's wrong. Number 9. Anything missing? Any zeros? Nope. X cubed, x squared, x to the first, constant. I have everything in order. So we'll put up our coefficients. What are we dividing by? Negative 3, because x equals negative 3 if I solve. Why don't you guys try this one on your own then from here? All right, guys. So I went ahead and set it up for you, but dropping down the 2. Now, one thing I see students do all the time, they get used to that being a 1. I've seen students write an arrow, and then they write 1. It's not a 1. That's a 2. So just whatever that number is, it comes straight down. So we multiply and get negative 6. We add and get negative 5. Multiply gives me a positive 15. Add gives me a positive 7. Multiply is negative 21. And then add is a negative 16. This one was x cubed, so this will be x squared minus 5x plus 7 plus a negative 16 over x plus 3. How'd we do? Blue. Mm-hmm. You always add your remainder on. Yeah, just keep it safe, always add your remainder on. All right. You ready for a little bit harder one? I like synthetic. I think it's fun. All right. I love that face, too. We're missing a what? We're missing a square. Do you guys see how we're missing something? Right? It goes x cubed x. There is a squared missing. So we need to put in our coefficients. We're going to have a 1. I need a 0 for the x squared because it's missing. Then a negative 57, and then a 56. What am I dividing by? 7. Because x equals 7. All right. Let's drop down the 1. Multiply. 7. Add is 7. That's another mistake people make all the time. They're like, 0 plus 7. 0. No. Or 0 times 7. Like, 7. No. So be careful. 7 times 7 is 49. Negative 57 plus 49 is negative 8. And we multiply and get negative 56. And that is 0. It is a factor. Very good. Again, this one started x cubed, so this is x squared plus 7x minus 8. And there is no remainder. But do you see I still have a place for constant and remainder? If you get down to the very end and you don't have even just a 0 there, something's wrong. So this is one where people mess up because they forget the 0. So real quick, don't write it down. Let me just show you, though. Go over there. All right, let me show you, if you forget the 0, what it looks like. Okay, so, and I see people do it all the time. They just get going and they forget the 0. So otherwise, I would get 7. That gives me negative 50. And then that's what, negative 350? To negative 2, what is that, 94? But okay, let's say even at this point, you're like, wow, those are bad numbers, but you didn't really like stop to think what was going on. You went x squared minus 50x, that's my constant. This should be a red flag because you should have a constant and you should have a remainder. That should be a red flag to you, like, ooh, I must have missed a zero somewhere because I don't have all the pieces that I stair-step down through. Does that make sense? Okay, so this, obviously very, very different answer and very, very wrong. All right. Divide, use synthetic division. I can't. What do you have to divide by? Can't use synthetic. It has to be x minus x plus or minus a number is what you have to divide by it. That is not. So based on those directions, I can't do anything. If the directions just said divide, what would you do? You'd have to use long division. It doesn't, but I'm just saying, be very clear here. Use synthetic division. I can't. I don't have to do this problem. If the directions just said divide, you would have to use long division. All right. All right, shifting gears just slightly. All right, use division. Notice it says use division. It could be either or. Use division and the given factor to completely factor the polynomial function. So they gave 1. Now, before we get into anything else, if I just gave you that problem and said factor it, could you? How many terms does it have? It's got 4, so don't write this down. But let's say I just gave you that and said factor. So you're like, all right, 4 terms. So you're going to do grouping, right? What's the GCF in the first set? X squared. So I'd have x minus 3. GCF here? Negative 2. So I'd have 5x minus 12. Oh, if I'm doing grouping, what should be the same? These should be the same. It's not that I did it wrong, it just won't factor by grouping. It will factor, but not by grouping. So, this is why we need another option. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if I ask you to factor, what should the remainder be? It should be a 0, because that means that should divide nicely, that it continues to factor. Okay? So if the directions are for you to factor completely and you do not get 0 for a remainder, you messed up somewhere. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead first. It says you use division, so let's do that first. So we're going to have 1, negative 3, negative 10, 24. The given factor is x minus 2. So what am I dividing by? 2. So let's go ahead and divide this and see what we get. So 2 times 1 is 2. And then we add, get negative 1. Multiply is negative 2. Add, negative 12. Multiply, I get negative 24. And then I get a 0. If I didn't get a 0, I should be worried. The direction said to factor. I should not have a remainder left over. All right, so let's continue on just like we did. This started x cubed, so this would be x squared minus x minus 12. And I have no remainder. It wants me to factor completely. So what am I supposed to do with this? Factor it. That's just normal factoring. 1's plus, 1's minus. Options for A is x and x. 1 and 12, 2 and 6, or 3 and 4? 3 and 4, and the 4 is negative. So what should my final answer be for this problem? Is it just that? And they gave me one. X minus 2. This is completely factored. There are 3 factors. It was x cubed. There are 3 factors. Right? I'm going to tell you right now, about half of you in here on your test on this chapter will miss the easy point on this. You'll forget the x minus 2. It's given. You just need to remember to write it in your answer, and people will forget. All right, use division in the given factor to completely factor. I have to what? Yeah, guys, I'm going to have to use long division because I can't use synthetic. Guys, you cannot use synthetic division with this. It's got an x squared on it. I can't use synthetic. So stop the whining, write it down, and let's do it. All right, I have to use long division because it's not just x and a number. Okay, so I have to go with long division, not synthetic. What do you multiply 2x squared to get 2x to the fourth? X squared. Yeah, right, Carson? All right, so that gives me 2x to the fourth plus x squared. Change your signs. Now, what do you need to be aware of? Are those like terms? This canceled, but these are not like terms. But this one is, right? I can put those together. But your like terms just didn't line up. That's going to give me negative 12x squared. So just be careful. Make sure you're very cautious. All of this dividing, your like terms don't always line up. If you miss one sign, the whole thing's wrong. You got to look for missing zeros on synthetic. There's a lot of things to watch for. What do you multiply 2x squared to get negative 2x cubed? Negative x. And we distribute and get negative 2x cubed minus x. Change your signs. And what happened to my like terms? They canceled because these are not alike. These are. It didn't line up again. Those are going to cancel. So negative 12x squared minus 6. Let me start over. What do you multiply 2x squared to get negative 12x squared? Negative 6. And distribute. We get negative 12x squared minus 6. Change your signs. And those canceled out. Am I done? I heard a lot of you set your pencil down. All right, the directions were to factor completely. So I didn't factor completely. I still need to factor this. Right? That's just regular old factoring. So I'm going to have 1 plus, 1 minus, x and x, 1 and 6, or 2 and 3? 2 and 3. Positive 2 minus 3. I just went ahead and factored whatever I had left. Am I done? I got to factor what? 2x squared plus 1. Will that factor further? No, it won't factor further. But don't forget it. With two terms, the only way that factors further is if it's a sum of difference of cubes, which it's not, or a difference of squares, and it's not that either. So I am done right there. I only have 3 factors, not 4. However, one of them's an x squared. So I still have all of my x's accumulated. Yeah, it just doesn't factor any further than that. So are we loving synthetic more and more every time you see long division? Long division is painful, but it has its time and place to use it. Given 1, 0, write the polynomial in factored form using division. So notice this time they gave me x equals negative 4. Can I use synthetic? Yeah, I sure can. Any missing zeros? No, none of them are missing. So 3, 13, 2, and negative 8. What am I dividing by? Negative 4. Guys, they gave you x equals negative 4. We always switch it to the opposite when they gave me like x plus 4. And every time I wrote x equals and that's what we used. They gave me x equals. I don't need to change anything. Okay, so go through your synthetic. Multiply, negative 12. Add gives me 1. Multiply is negative 4. Add is negative 2. Multiply gives me 8. Add 0. What happens when the directions are factor and I do not get a 0 at the end? You did it wrong. Okay, it should. All right, putting my x's back in here. This was x cubed, so this will be x squared plus 1x minus 2. All right, that's just regular factoring. 1 plus, 1 minus. Options for A, we have 1 and 3, so 1x and 3x. Options for C, just 1 and 2. So that's 3 minus 2, so that looks good. That worked. That it? What else do I need? Very nice, Lydia. That's going to give me x plus 4. It gave me the answer was negative 4, but it came from x plus 4. Am I solving these? No. What happens if you solve on a test? You lose points, because they did not ask you to solve. You want more points for not following directions. Not my fault you did extra. Nope, that's called follow directions, and then you wouldn't have to. Given one factor, write the polynomial in factored form using division. I can't use synthetic. It's got to be long division. All right, so that's all right. We'll just set it up. Dividing by x squared plus 2. But I'm glad that you're recognizing when I can and when I cannot use synthetic. All right, what do you multiply x squared to get x to the 6? X to the 4th. All right, we multiply, we'll get x to the 6 plus 2x to the 4th. Change your signs. So we get negative 7x to the 4th. And I'll bring everything else down. And then we start over. What do you multiply x squared to get negative 7x to the 4th? Good, negative 7x squared. And then we multiply, get negative 7x to the 4th minus 14x squared. Change your signs. So we have 12x squared plus 24. And we start over. What do you multiply x squared to get 12x squared? 12. And multiply it. So we get 12x squared plus 24. Change your signs. And I have a remainder of 0. If you did not get a remainder of 0, you messed up. Now, if I just ask you to divide, and that's literally the only direction, is it okay to have a remainder then? It just says divide. Yeah, you can get a remainder. But if I ask you to divide and then completely factor, you should not have a remainder because I want you to factor. All right, so from here, what do I do with that? Do we know how to factor this? Is that just like regular factoring? Yeah, it is. It's just quartic, which is just like normal. So both my signs are minus. Options for A. Good. X squared and x squared. 4 and 3. And then what? I have to factor more? Really? Two's right. See this? That's a difference of squares. That's x plus 2, x minus 2. Will this one go further too? No, that one stays x squared minus 3. Anything else? Remember the given? X squared plus 2. Isn't that pretty? as beautiful. So always factor as far as you possibly can. Sometimes those little difference of squares, they pop up, go further. If you end up with a sum and difference of cubes that pops up, you got to go further. You got to really watch what you have. All right, so questions on all of this? Synthetic is great, isn't it?